Welcome to the Strategic Planning Briefing for Vision 2030, the Delta Protection Commission Strategic Plan. My name is Lisa. I'm going to be your moderator today, and we're getting quite a few people that are signing on to the webinar with us right now. If you can hear me, would you mind doing a quick sound check and just raising your hand so that I know that you have good audio? There's a little button in your control panel that lets you do that. So there we go. Thank you, Jan. And Anthony, great. That means people can hear us. So once again, welcome. Thank you. Noticing quite a few people starting to join us online right now, but we like to reward people that are on time. So let me turn this on over to Nicole. So Nicole, take it away.
Hello there. Welcome and greetings. That's what it says. That's what I say. I'm Nicole Burt. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Delta Protection Commission. And Lisa already introduced herself. She will be facilitating and has been a huge help for us as we've been constructing this document. So welcome and glad everybody's here.
Okay, and we'll go ahead and start into our program. So now's the exciting part about making the screen advance. So one of the first things we wanted to let you know is the Delta Protection Commission is welcoming your questions and comments. There'll be a part of our agenda today where you have an opportunity to do that. If you take a look at your control panel, there's a place to ask questions. There's a place to chat with us, so please feel free to do that. And during the question and answer time, we'll go ahead and take a look at that and pull everything together. We'll try to get as many questions answered as we can during the Q&A session, but if for some reason we're not able to do that, don't worry. We have a written recording of everything that you're giving us, and that will be something that can be taken forward and compiled, then used in consideration of preparing the strategic plan. So Nicole, what have we got going on today?
Okay, well, we'll go over the strategic planning process, what we've done so far, the sections of the plan. We'll review the strategic themes and some of the objectives that we have arranged under the strategic themes. Please be paying attention, and when you have questions, note them down, because then we'll move into the question and comments. And it's a fairly comprehensive document. We won't be going back and forth. We'll be doing that at the end. So keep your questions handy. Then we'll review the next steps and let everybody go on.
Great.
Okay, so far we had a meeting with our commission. The commissioners established the first initial direction. Then staff took it over. We had workshops with the public and meetings where we were collecting input in January 2014, March, and in September as well. The Commission formed a subcommittee to review the document as it was developed. The Delta Protection Advisory Committee reviewed the document as it was developed, and then we held 2 public meetings so that anyone who was not part of the process up to that point would have a chance to give us input as well, so that everyone who cared to weigh in could be considered before we moved forward to have the strategic plan approved, which will happen in May. And the next step, our commission meeting is May 21st. We will present a finished document to the commission for approval and adoption. And then we will have our implementation plan, which is the breakdown of exactly how we're going to implement our objectives, what's going to be done, what the timelines are, a little more detail. And then by the fall, we'll have our communications plan fleshed out, which will be a key part of keeping everybody up to date as to what the activities are as we move forward.
So one of the things that we wanted to bring to your attention, and my guess is we can see some of the folks that have registered, so you probably know a lot about the Delta already, but there is sometimes some confusion. There are 3 different agencies that are working on very, very similar things. So what's important to understand about the Delta Protection Commission is its mission is to protect, maintain, enhance, and enrich the overall quality of the Delta environment and economy, And this is done with a focus on agriculture, recreation, and natural resources while remaining mindful of the importance of the Delta to all Californians. What's a little bit different about the Delta Commission versus its sister agencies, the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta Conservancy and the Delta Stewardship Council, is that it's the only body that is the voice of the Delta. It directly represents the Delta residents. It also has a very unique role in state government in that it's a land use authority. So it is able, through its planning process, to set out guidelines for general plans that each of the counties and cities need to look at prior to developing. So it's a very, very special role that they play. And
okay, go ahead.
I was going to say there are also 2 companion plans that are very important and feed into the strategic planning process. So go ahead, Nicole.
Okay, the Land Use and Resource Management Plan is the master document that our planners use in order to exercise our authority over the primary zone of the Delta, and it was enacted to protect and defend the land uses in the Delta from urban sprawl, from mismanagement, so that the resources are management over the long term. And it is everything that is presented to us from county planning departments, city planning departments, projects that are being submitted have to be in harmony with the Land Use and Resource Management Plan. And if it is not, we write comment letters, and these projects are not allowed to move forward. And the Economic Sustainability Plan, which was finished in 2012, outlines public safety recommendations, economic goals, policies, and objectives, and encourages recreation along the Delta, for the people of the Delta, for the culture of the Delta, to keep them a healthy and sustainable economy.
So the actual strategic plan, this is the focus and the structure. It starts out with the way you kind of expect to see strategic plans, with a message from the chair, an introduction. There's also a section on the Commission's authority. So once again, there's sort of that unique authority that you don't see with the other agencies. And it describes the 2 companion plans that we just provided you with some background information on. The Commission has articulated a vision for the future, their mission, which we just looked at a second ago, and outline some of the challenges, principles that they think need to be put into play as you are working on the strategic themes and goals. So the challenges are types of things that make it very difficult for the Delta to be protected. Those are described. The urgency is really projected there, and the principles are the guiding values that help the decision makers determine whether or not something is a right fit. The strategic themes are the areas where the Commission is working, and the strategies, objectives, and actions that will be taken to advance the overall vision and mission. And then finally, at the end of the document, there's a section on capacity building. This has to do with making sure that the Commission has all the tools it needs to do to be effective, as well as the basic kinds of things that you would expect to see in a state plan, things like funding. And then finally, there's a timeline that talks about the history of the Delta Protection Commission and some of the key events that have happened over time. The themes of the plan are simple: they're water, agriculture, levees, and emergency response. I shouldn't say they're simple, they certainly aren't, but it's a simple list. Regional economy, Delta heritage, recreation and tourism, and education and outreach.
Okay, the first strategic theme being water, a no-brainer, as we all know. The key point here is that water is the lifeblood of the Delta. We know that we need reliable fresh water, but we are also mindful of the rest of California's need for water. The Delta Protection Commission is very realistic about that. The Commission insists that a viable California water solution must respect and protect the Delta's unique values, and that's straight out of our legislative mandate.
So some of the objectives related to this particular theme really focus on reducing reliance on Delta freshwater supplies. And this is for statewide. So one of the hopes that the Commission has is that by working with the rest of the state to improve efficiency, to find alternative solutions, that it actually can allow the freshwater to stay within the Delta system. The Commission is also very interested in providing a through Delta freshwater conveyance and doing the types of things that will protect and enhance the Delta's natural resources, primarily by keeping the salinity out of the system. Another interesting thing that an authority that the Commission has that many other state agencies don't have, but they are able to advocate for legislation and funding. And a big, big issue for the Commission is the aquatic invasive species. And some of the kinds of things that they're going to be doing to work with this is certainly collaborate with other agencies that have similar missions, very, very strong relationship with the old Department of Boating and Waterways, which is now a part of the Department of Parks and Recreation. And they'll be doing white papers, educational items, and have a very active process of analyzing proposals and making comments and providing input to other types of other bodies that are making similar kinds of decisions.
Okay, the second strategic theme is agriculture. The Delta Protection Commission works to conserve agricultural land and economically sustainable agricultural operations in the Delta, and that's for the very self-evident reason that this is prime agricultural farmland. The Delta is overwhelmingly made up of prime agricultural farmland, and that's actually, the rest of California has a very small percentage of farmland that's rated prime. We can grow more food for more people more efficiently in the Delta than almost anywhere else, and that land needs to stay in agricultural production.
So some of the objectives related to this are to protect and enhance the long-term viability of commercial agriculture. And this is something that, because of where the Delta is and the fact that it's pretty rural, as Nicole just pointed out, a lot of people don't really understand the importance of that and how viable that is. Another thing that the Commission is charged with doing is really protecting the lands from inappropriate development. And then they're really very, very much interested in promoting wildlife-friendly farming and agriculture-friendly habitat restoration. They really believe there's a place for working landscapes and have a big emphasis in their planning process towards that. One of the big ways that they're going to get these things done there is through the development of several plans. One of them is an agricultural sustainability plan. One of them is implementation of the land use plan that we talked about a little bit earlier. There are lots and lots of different objectives and sub-objectives and actions that are related to getting a better understanding of the information, compiling inventories of data, and also collaborations with key players and working with the regional urban connection strategies process for infrastructure that enhances the Delta regional economy. Another big ticket item is to promote farm-to-fork and agritourism opportunities for the direct benefit of Delta growers. And I'm noticing online with us we actually have one of our Delta farmers is on the webinar with us right now, so shout out to Mark Wilson. So let's go on to the next item.
Levees and emergency response. The Delta Protection Commission promotes the protection of life and property through the maintenance and improvement of Delta levees and emergency preparedness and response. Couple issues here. The levees are essential, of course, not only to the safety of the residents of the Delta, but they're equally essential to the people who are exporting Delta water, because if levees go and the sea comes in, nobody's water is worthwhile, and the quality deteriorates. Levees are just as essential to the people who use Delta water outside the Delta as they are to the safety of the people who live within the Delta. Emergency preparedness and response, you've got 5 different counties, all of which have county-based emergency response, and the coordination of that so that someone who's closest responder perhaps is in another county but can get to them faster than their own county responders can. That coordination is an essential part of the safety of the residents of the Delta. And this also includes long-term planning, not short-term fixes. The levees are going to be with us for a long, long time, and changes are afoot in our climate, and we need to make sure that what we start can be built upon in the future instead of short-term band-aids.
Some of the objectives associated with this item is partnership, and this is really the only way this is going to get done. As Nicole pointed out, there are many, many actors involved in this process, and collaboration and partnership will be essential to really improve emergency preparedness and response. It's key to protect those Delta communities' property and infrastructure. Another big issue has to do with reliable funding for Delta levee maintenance and improvements. The current funding processes for these types of things really has a lot of different channels and sources, and they really can't be dependent on over time. So a big emphasis is to find some stability and reliable funding that will make sure that this activity is occurring over time. And then finally, because there are so many other people involved in making decisions about the Delta, it's important that Delta residents are represented in the decision-making process. So one of the things that the Commission does is actively engage in a way to create a voice for those that are physically living and being protected by the levees.
Regional economy. The Delta Protection Commission promotes a robust regional economy that protects agriculture, natural resources, and cultural values of the Delta. This is not a giant marsh. There are a tremendous amount of history through the gold rush, a tremendous amount of history that's unique in the United States. There are hundreds and hundreds of crops grown in the Delta across a wide range of plants and food, and there are people here, and the economy, it has to be viable.
So there are a couple of pretty big ticket items in this list of objectives. The first one is the implementation of the Economic Sustainability Plan. That's the plan that we talked about a little bit earlier in the webinar. Another thing that's going on is to evaluate the regional infrastructure needs and identify opportunities to maximize the Delta benefits. And infrastructure includes everything from utility corridors, roadways, the assets of the commercial partners, the assets of the heritage communities. There's quite a bit of infrastructure and things that if it's managed just a little bit differently or enhanced could get better benefits. There's also work on using a Delta investment fund. So one of the big items here is to get money into that fund and make sure that there are funds available to invest. And then finally, to identify environmental factors that negatively impact the economic sustainability of the Delta. As part of this, some of the actions that are going to happen is there is a needs assessment being conducted for the legacy communities and surrounding areas. And this is a process that's going to be very interactive with the public. There are going to be meetings where people are able to come in and talk about what those assets are. And there's going to be a work plan developed for the Delta Investment Fund and ways to find more funds that can come into the process. This section includes quite a bit of other kinds of working group configurations. The Commission is very fortunate in that they have a Delta Protection Advisory Committee that works with them, and if you go onto the Delta Protection Commission website, you'll be able to look up who those folks are. But they're people that live, work, their names are well known to anyone who has been involved in the Delta, that are providing guidance from the perspective of people that every day are trying to get work done in the Delta.
Delta Heritage. The Delta Protection Commission promotes and enhances the Delta's unique cultural and natural heritage. The Delta is an undiscovered jewel. There are pieces of California history that are preserved nowhere else. Japanese American communities, Chinese American communities, Asian Pacific Islander stories, gold rush stories, the steamboats, and that needs to be preserved, recognized, and brought up to date to move into the future.
So some of the objectives for this is to protect the Delta's distinctive character, and we're going to be using that land use and resource management plan. So again, you can see how essential this particular plan is because it's really articulating what the Delta should look like and what land use should be. So that'll be a big part of it. There are a lot of exciting activities going on related to the cultural and historic resources of the Delta. Nicole mentioned some of them, but there has been some discussion over time of establishing a natural heritage area in the Delta that is would be part of an improved management plan. To advance recognitions of themes that are identified in the feasibility study for this, to move forward with key things that could improve tourism and enrich the heritage, understanding of the heritage there. There are two particular projects on the table right now. One is the Delta Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Corridor and the Holland Union, how do you say that?
Gakuen.
Gakuen.
Gakuen, yes, that's the very last Japanese language school prior to the Internment Act during World War II is still standing and still able to be visited in Clarksburg, California. Those are the kind of just irreplaceable things that we need to preserve.
And time is really working against us on these. The team that has been assigned to look at this is quite concerned with historic assets. As time goes by, the ability to even preserve and maintain that heritage gets more and more impaired. So it's important to move on these things quickly. So this gets back to some of the other work that's been done with the legacy communities, going in and getting those assets identified and continuing to tell the important story about the role that the Delta has played over time. Another thing that they really would like to put forward in the strategic plan is that there's an amazing heritage of natural resources over time, the wildlife habitat, the scenic value, all the things that a lot of people actually who've spent any time in the Delta truly appreciate and isn't necessarily understood by others, that there is a lot going on out there through working landscapes that has created an amazing portfolio of natural resources.
The Delta Protection Commission, and I love this one because there was a time when the Delta was celebrated for its tourism, for its 1,000 miles of waterways, and that will happen again. We are committed to national recognition of the Delta as a diverse, accessible, modern recreation and tourism destination.
There are a number of things that can be done here, and you'll keep seeing this word over and over again as well, partner and collaborate. It's all about teamwork. There are a lot of people with an interest in what's happening, and the Delta Protection Commission is bringing its special role, its special voice to help enact these types of things. So one of the things that will be done is to complete a Delta Recreation Facility inventory to promote public-private partnerships and multiple use of appropriate lands for recreation and tourism. And that means that there really is a place for the private sector. That doesn't necessarily have to be a public sector activity. Great excitement about moving forward with extending the Great California Delta Trail by continued planning and support and collaboration in all the segments, and partner with Visit California to create an awareness as the Delta as a unique destination region to potential visitors, and increasing, we talked about this a little bit earlier, the farm to fork elements. One of the big deals or difficulties when you have private lands adjoining places where there's a lot of recreation use is to make sure that they really are protected, that people understand the private lands really aren't places to go hiking, and that there needs to be some protection from intrusion. So getting that balance between having people someplace and then also protecting the assets. So a big piece of what needs to happen with the strategic plan is creating an understanding of that. And then finally, the amazing asset of boating and waterways here. There's just the most extraordinary waterway system, and it's important that boating be safe, that the marinas are healthy and viable, and that we take care of those invasives. The invasives are just an overall horrible addition to the Delta, and that's something that has to be addressed.
Education and outreach. We are the voice of those who live, work, and play in the Delta. As Lisa pointed out earlier, the Delta Protection Commission is the only one of the 3 Delta agencies that have a charge to be the voice of the residents and the businesses of the Delta. We are committed to actively supporting communication between the stakeholders and the policymakers, creating a forum through which Delta residents, businesses, and interests can make their positions heard. We are their seat at the table.
And actually, Nicole, I think I'm going to let you talk about this. This is something you're working on. You're the public information officer, and you're actually pretty passionate about it. What are some of your visions for this?
Okay, well, we will have a communication and outreach plan so that rather than be reactive, we can be far more proactive getting information out, either getting information that's important for the residents to understand out to the residents, and also to get the voice of the residents, the opinions of the businesses back to the legislators and the policymakers. The Delta Protection Advisory Committee is a treasure to us. Those are our boots on the ground. Those are the representatives of not only other state agencies that are actively engaged in the Delta, but also the community itself, the business owners, the recreation facility owners, the farmers. We bring everyone to the table, and they have been invaluable, not only helping us get the word out, but bringing the word back to us. And then collaborating and partnering on communication. We do a lot of partnerships with boating and waterways, with state parks, with fish and wildlife, sometimes even with energy, and we need to do a better job of making sure everyone, not only the residents but all of California, understands what's being done, what a treasure the Delta is, and I'm very pleased to be part of it because it's a story that needs to be told.
So some of the next steps, there will be, after the adoption of this plan, the staff will be preparing an implementation plan. And the plan will be set up to note sort of midterm, long-term, and short-term actions. And the focus of the implementation plan will be on those shorter-term actions. So what in the next 2 years will the staff be doing and setting into motion that will make sure that the goals of the strategic plan and the goals of the mission and the vision are being met. So that plan will have be set up in a format that's pretty easy to read. It'll kind of use some bubble chart kinds of things, measles charts, so that you can see what activities are going to happen and the time frame for them, and more details about each of the individual steps. So you've heard a lot of comments about collaboration, conducting studies, doing those things. In the implementation plan, it will kind of list what's going to happen in the next 2 years. In some respects, some of the things based on the initial direction of the Commission, they're really already in place, and because of the companion plans, a lot of things are in place. So this is really about advancing the overall strategy of the strategic plan. So what do people do if they want to find out more, or if they want to give you input? What's the next steps for that?
Okay, well, you can read the current public draft of the strategic plan. You can download it off the website. That's a great slide of the homepage of our website, and the links are right there. If you have comments of any length, something you'd like to say, some project you would like us to consider, you can email me. That will be on the dpc@delta.ca.gov. I would appreciate it if you would head your email strategic plan input so that we know immediately what it is. We have gotten great ideas from the public so far. It's never safe to assume that only one group of people is going to have all the good ideas. So please, if you feel that there's something that could assist the Delta that you'd like to see addressed at in the Delta, we want to hear it. We will either try to fold it in, or if it's not something we feel we can do, we'll see to it that we are advocating to the people who can get it done that it needs to be done. We'd like to have those comments by May 8th so that we can review them and fold them into the final draft that will go out to our commissioners. And then that strategic plan, we are hoping, will be voted on and adopted at our meeting on the 21st of May. So if you could use that email, speak today. Anything that comes up in our question and answer will also be retained and reviewed. We want people to weigh in because this is not something that needs to be created in a vacuum. There's no point of being the voice of the Delta if you don't listen to what the Delta has to say.
Okay. Well, I think that that might be one of the most efficient briefings that we've ever done, Nicole. We are way ahead of schedule. So the good news about that is we have lots of time for questions. I'm noticing hardly anybody. I'm able to kind of see everybody's audio situation. It looks like almost everybody's on the computer. So if you have a headset and a speaker, something that you actually can talk to your computer, you're welcome to raise your hand. I'd be happy to open your mic. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and use the question or chat function, and I do see a question, so we'll go ahead and start with that. So here's one of the questions, Nicole. It says, as you said, there's a ton of overlap with the numerous Delta-centric policy documents that have taken shape, especially since the enactment of the Delta Reform Act. Do you have any thoughts about how the DPC is going to tag on to the Delta Conservancy's strategic plan adopted in June of 2012, especially with similar messages and missions, and the particular person who is sending us a note is a proxy member for Don Natoli. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't want to lie to you and tell you that I'm intimately familiar with the strategic plan of the Conservancy. We work very closely with them. So if you have a specific reference, I don't know that I can speak to it. We have improved communications with the Conservancy enormously in the last 2 years, and we are working together on many projects. Their focus is more, as any conservancy, is habitat, conservation, environmental concerns, public-private partnerships, and they do have an economic development mandate that we share as well. The money that became available to them with the passage of Proposition 1, we are specifically assisting with the distribution of that and are consulting on their grant process. Does that answer your question?
And Don, if it does, go ahead and just raise your hand and let us know. If not, you can keep writing. Okay, well, I'm not seeing anything new, so let's see. All right, well, yes, he said we did it. He raised his hand. Thank you, Don.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else have a question that you'd like to ask us or share? All right, well, we don't need to be in a meeting that we don't need to be in. Last chance, anybody else? And what are some of your last thoughts? Nicole, anything that in particular, if you could impart to this audience that would be important for them?
Well, I've noticed that a lot of you are from other agencies, a lot of our partner agencies, and I appreciate your taking the trouble, especially at practically lunchtime, to come make yourself aware of what we're doing, and I look forward to working with you in the future as we move forward on this, and I appreciate your taking the time.
Well, great. I'm going to just leave it open one more minute. Anybody else? Last call. You've got Nicole's email. Please feel free to send her a note. I know that's, especially when you're on the spot, you can't always think of it. And you may want to download the document and look at that. So feel free to do that. Get those comments in by May 8th. And otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So thank you so much for joining us.